Nobody tells you what it feels like to sleep on a garage floor. Not the cold, not the smell of old motor oil, not the way every sound outside makes you wonder if tonight is the night something goes wrong. But I'll tell you what kept me awake. It wasn't the cold. It was the number. I kept doing the math over and over in my head, on paper, on my phone screen until the battery died. I kept running the numbers because somewhere in those numbers was the only door out of that garage. I was 19 years old. I had $43. I had no credit, no college, no address, and I was trying to build a bank. I know how that sounds. I know exactly how that sounds. But this is not a rags to riches fairy tale. This is the part they never show you. The part before the success. The part where everything is possible and nothing is certain. And the only thing between you and giving up is the next page of your notebook. Stay with me, because this story will change the way you think about what's actually possible.
My mother worked 2 jobs for 11 years. Home health aide during the day, overnight gas station cashier on weekends. She never complained about it, not once. She complained about other things. She complained about the neighbor's dog and the apartment's leaky faucet and the price of chicken. But never the work, never the hours. I grew up watching her eat standing at the sink because sitting down felt like a luxury she hadn't earned yet. That image never left me. I was 17 when I first said to her, "Mom, I'm gonna fix this." She looked at me. Long pause. Then she said, and I remember every word, "Baby, focus on finishing school first. Then we'll see about fixing things." She wasn't wrong. She was just working from a different map. Her map said, work hard, stay safe, survive. Mine said, work hard, take risks, build something. We were both reading the same city. We just had different destinations.
The sign was taped to the inside of the glass. Minimum opening balance, $500. I had 43. I stood there for a long time. Long enough that a security guard inside started watching me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't embarrassed. I was doing what I always did. I was studying the problem. See, I'd been trying to open a savings account for my mother for 2 years. Every bank in a 3-mile radius had a minimum. Most had fees. One wanted a credit check just to open a checking account. I went home and I wrote it down. Not as frustration, as a business model gap. What does a community do when the bank won't let them in? They need their own bank. I wrote that sentence at the bottom of page 1 of a composition notebook I still have. That sentence started everything. Ray Okafor told me the idea was insane. He said it the same way a doctor tells you something serious. No drama, no softening, just a plain, flat sentence. Marcus, you're 19 years old. You have no capital, no license, no legal standing, and you want to start a bank. That's insane. I know, I said. Most people are insane in ways that ruin them, he said. Once in a while, someone is insane in a way that changes something. I'm not sure which one you are yet. He looked down at my notebook for a long time. Then he said, "Come back Thursday. Bring the numbers. Real numbers, not dreams." I came back Thursday. I always came back. What I didn't tell Ray yet was that I was sleeping in my uncle's garage. I hadn't told anyone that. I had an address for mail. I had a P.O. box in a strip mall on the east side. But my actual bed was a sleeping bag on a concrete floor with a space heater that smelled like burning dust. I kept that information very close because I had learned early, people stop believing in your ideas the moment they think you're desperate. I wasn't desperate. I was focused. There's a difference. Most people never understand the difference. Ray discovered the loophole 6 weeks after we started meeting. Not a fraud loophole, not a scheme, a legal structure, a community development financial institution, a CDFI,
federally recognized, designed specifically for underserved communities. There was a certification process, there were grants, there was a regulatory pathway that didn't require $1 million in startup capital. Ray read it twice before he said anything. Then he turned to me and said, "This is your door." I didn't say anything. I sat with it. I read the whole document, all 47 pages, in one sitting that night. By morning, I had a plan. Not a dream, a plan. Phases, timelines, required capital, regulatory milestones. I wrote it out on graph paper because regular lined paper felt too loose. Ray called it the...
I told my mother on a Tuesday. Not about the garage, not yet. I told her about the bank. She worked nights that week, so we met at the hospital cafeteria on her break. 15 minutes. I showed her the CDFI framework. I showed her the grant schedule. I showed her the business registration documents I'd already filed. She looked at it all. She read slowly, the way she read everything, like every word mattered. Then she said, "Where did you sleep last month, Marcus?" I said, "I moved around." She looked at me the way only mothers can look at you, like she already knew every sentence you were about to say. "You sleep in your uncle's garage," she said. It wasn't a question. I didn't deny it. She was quiet for a long time, long enough for a nurse to walk through and a PA announcement to echo and fade. Then she said, "Your grandmother used to say, the people who change things aren't comfortable people. They're people who get comfortable being uncomfortable." She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "Don't you dare quit," she said. "Not now. Not ever." I drove back to the garage, and I cried for about 4 minutes. Then I opened my notebook.
Cynthia Holt was assigned to review my application. She had reviewed 43 financial institution applications in 16 years. She told me that in our first meeting, not as a welcome, as a warning. "I have seen every kind of application," she said. "Creative ones, polished ones, desperate ones. The desperate ones are the most dangerous because the person behind them is willing to bend things they shouldn't bend." "I'm not desperate," I said. "I'm organized." She looked at my file. She asked about my capital reserves. She asked about my board structure. She asked about my compliance training. I had answers for every question. Real answers. Documented answers. She flipped to the back of the application. "You're 20 years old," she said. "Yes," I said. "And you're applying for CDFI certification with $12,400 in pooled community savings from 43 neighborhood members." 47 now, I said. 4 more joined last week. She looked at me for a long moment. "Come back in 30 days, she said. "I have more questions." I drove back to the garage, and I added 30 days to my calendar. I was not afraid. Fear is only useful if it moves you. Otherwise, it's just noise.
The letter arrived in week 11. A formal objection had been filed against our CDFI application by a financial services lobbying group. 3 paragraphs of legal language designed to sound procedural, but aimed at one thing: delay. Ray read it 3 times. Then he sat down on a milk crate. "They don't want you to exist," he said. "I know," I said. "Marcus, fighting this objection costs money we don't have." "I know that too." We were quiet for a moment. "Community members," I said. "We go back to them. We tell them the truth. We tell them someone filed a paper to try to stop us, and we ask them if they want to keep going. And if they say no, then I'll have my answer." They didn't say no. We held a meeting in a church basement on a Wednesday night. 61 people showed up, 14 more than we had on our member list. They brought neighbors, they brought family. An elderly woman named Miss Gloria stood up and said, "I've been trying to get a savings account for 22 years. Y'all are not stopping this boy."
We raised $3,800 in donations to fund the legal response. In one night. In a church basement. The objection was answered in full within 9 days.
The second meeting with Cynthia Holt lasted 3 hours. I came with a revised application, a community impact report, 68 signed member testimonials, and a full legal response to the objection, reviewed and co-signed by a pro bono attorney Ray had found through a nonprofit law clinic. I did not come with an attitude. I did not come with anger. I came with data. At the end of the 3 hours, Cynthia Holt closed the last binder. She took off her reading glasses. She looked at me directly for the first time in the meeting. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I've reviewed a lot of applications. Most people applying for this kind of certification are organizations with lawyers, accountants, and 10 years of infrastructure." She paused. "You have a notebook and a church full of people who believe in you. I find that either foolish or extraordinary. I'm recommending conditional approval." I thanked her, calm, professional. I thanked her, shook her hand, walked out of that building, sat in my car, and then I put my forehead on the steering wheel and I just breathed. For about 6 minutes. Then I called my mother. We opened the doors of the Southgate Community Financial Cooperative on the 3rd Saturday of November. Marcus was 21 years old. The space was a converted barber shop. The sign outside was hand-painted by a man named Vernon, who'd been a member since week 2. The coffee was donated. The chairs were borrowed. 89 community members came that day. Some opened accounts. Some just came to see. Miss Gloria was there. She opened the first official account, $340 that she'd been keeping in a coffee can under her bed for 6 years because every bank in her zip code had a minimum she couldn't meet. My mother cried. Ray did not cry. He just stood in the back corner with his arms crossed and nodded very slowly, the way he always did when he was proud of something. I didn't give a speech. I just said thank you to all of them. Then we got to work.
I still have the notebook. First page, 7 words. They need their own bank. Build it. That's all it was. 1 sentence on a February night in a cold garage while my mother was sleeping at her night shift and my college rejection letters were still sitting in a drawer somewhere. I think about that notebook a lot. Not because I'm proud of it, well, maybe a little, but mostly because of what it represents. The gap between that sentence and the day I unlocked those doors for the first time was 642 days. 642 days of no's, of sleepless nights, of a church basement, of Cynthia Holt looking at me like I was either brilliant or deluded. Here's what I know now that I didn't know in that garage. The people who change things are not always the smartest. They are not always the most connected. They are not always the most talented. They are the ones who kept going on day 641. The twist in my story isn't that I built a bank. The twist is that the bank exists not because I was exceptional. It exists because I refused to believe the answer was no. Miss Gloria is 81 now. She doesn't keep her money under a coffee can anymore. Neither do 214 other people in this neighborhood. And that's the only number that ever really mattered.